All right. We are live.
Another Monday night.
Welcome to Monday Night Live on 10 Horse Money YouTube channel. Got a good show for you tonight. Got Mr. Matt Ells. He's in the queue back there, and he's going to be jumping on here with us really shortly. We're going to talk a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about how to win a bass tournament, how to win a big bass tournament. Going to do a little fall, winter fishing, that kind of stuff. Just keep it somewhat seasonal and go from there. But before we get him here, I just want to make a big announcement. Something that happened last week. I'm super excited about it. Now officially on Team Baitworks. I'm going to be working and partnered up with Baitworks. I'm super excited about that. And if you see on the ticker here, you'll notice on the ticker running across the screen, if you use the code THM10, you will get 10% off your order. And in the description box, you can use that code to get you to Baitworks, and then use the other code THM10 and get you 10% off your order. Super excited to partner up with them. I've been wanting to partner up with somebody, but it just hasn't been the right timing and stuff. And I reached out to Randy Conlon. He was on our stream
a couple months ago.
Yeah, it's been a while ago, but it was a Boatworks stream. We were just talking about, purchasing boats and things like that. And I just gave him a phone call and I said, hey, do you think Baitworks would be interested in, working together? And he's like, I'm pretty sure they would. Let me make a couple phone calls. So long story short, he put me in contact with Jacob down there, the marketing manager. So we got to talking and things just kind of went from there. So I'm super excited to be working with them. They're doing a lot of good stuff. They're growing fast. Got a lot of good plans in the future. I'm going to probably be traveling down there to do some video work with them. So use that code, get on their website, check them out, and support them. They're down in Springfield area. They have 3 stores, I believe. I think that's what Randy said. I think they got one at Lake of the Ozarks and one in, was it Alabama? Maybe?
I think that was the Boatworks, though, in Alabama, wasn't it?
That's right, the Boatworks.
So they were going to incorporate a small portion of the Baitworks, but their main focus was the Boatworks side of that one down in Alabama. Dad and I were talking about that this weekend, actually. So they're definitely growing really fast.
Yeah, they're ambitious. They got big plans. So I'm happy to be on board with them. First time I was down there was, I think, last year, and Baitworks was in Boatworks. So they had a decent sized bait shop inside of Boatworks. They recently bought a building next to Boatworks, and they moved Baitworks over there. So they've got a huge retail store. It's a nice brick and mortar. It's got everything in it.
And you've been to the new one?
I've been to the new one. It's impressive. They have a ton of stuff. It's overwhelming. It's really nice. Yeah.
Overwhelming.
It's nice. Yeah. You spend a couple hours in there walking around. You can also spend several $100s in there very, very easily.
So, well, you posted a question here a while ago. What's been working for you lately? What's been working for you?
Hold on. Let me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me finish. Let me do the little house clean stuff. Let me finish it. I just want to give a couple more shout outs real quick before we move on.
You bet.
Winning Edge Fishing. Special thanks to Rob. He's the guy that puts the social media ads out there. And if you are in the outdoors industry or whatever industry you're in, and you're looking for someone to help you do some social media ads, get a hold of Winning Edge Fishing. Great guy. And he's been part of this stream, since like the last year and a half, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Also, shout out to Hawgz Custom Baits. They're making a lot of stuff now. They started out making just custom plastics and stuff, custom colors. He's moved over to bladed jigs. They have standard jigs, ball head jigs, finesse jigs. They're doing some shaky head stuff. They're doing a little bit of everything. So go check them out. And Cumberland Pro Lures. Cumberland Pro's been with me for a while. They keep innovating. Isaac's always working. His mind is he's always trying to make the product better. And that's what he's been doing. The pig jig and the Bama swim jig is a product that they came out with probably like 4 months ago. I've been fishing those a lot. Like in my videos, most of the time, if you see me catching fish on a jig, that's what it's going to be, that pig jig lately. The Procaster has been around for a while. That's the kind of the flagship jig, which is a super sweet compact jig. I love that. The Tree Track swim jigs are another one that I throw around a lot. Love it. They're working on 2 jigs. In fact, I think they've got them. I think they're on the way to Baitworks sometime. He's got a finesse jig that he just came out. It's like a ball head finesse jig. And then he's got a football jig. And I don't have my hands on those yet. As soon as I get some, I'll definitely show them to you on the live stream, and you'll see me fishing them out on the water. And that is it. I think that takes care of everything I wanted to talk about as far as the house cleaning stuff. So yeah, check out Baitworks. Super excited to be involved with them, and I'm looking forward to the relationship growing and just helping each other out. And you'll see some stuff tied in with them in the near future.
Well, you tell me they really listen to you guys out there as a team.
That's another cool thing. When I talked to Jacob, he said, when you're looking at the website, they're growing. They've got some holes in their website. They're trying to plug them in, and it's a slow process. It's you can imagine trying to get product from all the hundreds of companies that are out there. It's just slow. You got to keep building and building, but they're definitely motivated and moving in the right direction. But he said, if there's stuff in your area that you don't see on the website, let us know, because we want to get that stuff in stock. And so I've been kind of looking at the website, looking at some of the things that I think that they should stock, and I'm going to kind of write me a little list, get back a hold of him and see where it goes.
Well, we fish different stuff than where they're
right. We have grass around here,
a
lot of the Ozark lakes, they don't have grass. So
a lot of different techniques, a lot of same techniques, a lot of overlap though from the Ozark area to here. But then again, when we have a handful of lakes, like you said, that grass and different offshore plays a little bit. So
yeah. So let's bring Matt in.
Okay,
and then we'll start with that here.
I bet something's been working for him lately.
I'm sure it has. I know something that's been working for him not too long ago. What's going on, Matt? How are you?
I'm good, guys. What's going on?
Nothing, man. We're just ready to talk a little bit of fishing and relax and get the workday out of my head. I'm a letter carrier for the Postal Service, and this time change, I do not like the time change because it puts us out there in the dark, working in the dark. And I do not like working in the dark. I don't like delivering packages. You get out of your little mail vehicle and you have to walk to the door and it's dark. You don't know what's in the yard. There's sticks, there's little kids' toys, there's garden tools, there's dog crap, dogs. You just don't know. It's like it takes me a couple of weeks to get used to that. And it's hard to see too. It's hard to see. We got old school. Those things they're very outdated. So their headlights they're not good. You can barely see like 10 feet in front of the truck. So you're always wondering about if you're going to run into something. It's treacherous out there. So it's nice to have the first day of daylight savings time behind me. And
you won't have to do it anymore after this time though. This is the last one.
I've heard that.
Is it?
Yeah, they voted it in. So the next go around, like in the spring, when it springs forward, that's the last time. We're not changing time again.
Yes. So it's going to be like it was yesterday.
It'll be like it was 2 days ago. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's the best news I've heard.
See, the only thing that I don't like about that, and
okay,
I'm okay with it, but is the mornings.
Right.
Because, when you're going to work at 7 o'clock and it's still dark out.
Dark.
I struggle with that.
Yep. I got up early. I got up this morning. I woke up. I felt like I was late.
Yeah.
Because I had an hour of sunlight. Yeah. Which is
but
nice.
As a bass fisherman, you don't have to get out of bed till like 6:30, and you can still be on the water at daylight. So
I know.
That's nice too.
That's right up my alley. That's right up my alley.
You still won't be there by daylight, though.
No, I won't. I will. Yeah, that's funny because sometimes I fish these winter derbies, and I always like that idea of being able to sleep in another hour.
At 8.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, those summertime derbies aren't for you, are they?
No, those ones where they start at 5:30.
Yeah,
I'm hoping they start at 6:30 and they start. Well, it starts. They're 7 and then they go to 6:30 and they go to 6 and then they go to 5:30. And I'm like, geez, I got to get out of bed at
like 3:30.
Yeah, 3:30.
We have an hour drive to the lake.
Oh, that's tough.
So
yeah. I fished some BFLs down at Kentucky Lake, and the first one of this year, I think it started at 6 or 6:30, and that was one where I did a suicide drive. I just got up in the morning, drove 2 hours straight down there, and jumped in the boat as a co-angler. But I remember leaving I can't remember what time I left, but it was.
Well, you and I have done that a couple times, and it's a regret every single time.
Yeah, you're burnt at the end of the day. You're just trashed on the way home. You're trying to stay awake. The worst thing you can do is stop by Wendy's or something and get a big, like triple with fries and a Frosty. Right. And you're good for about 20, 30 minutes, and then you're just trying to stay on the road.
And then you hit one of those windy roads over there in Kentucky, and you're doing this. It's just lulling you to sleep. Oh,
yep.
Worst.
Heated seats on or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about how your plan didn't work most of the time, how you had this big grand plan that you've been working on for a whole week, and it just fell apart.
It all fell apart.
It all fell apart. Let me go. Let's just touch on some of these comments, and then we'll go from there. So the question, like you said, I posted, what's been working for you lately? I always like to post a little question out there to see what's going on in different parts of the country. And Neil is in Central Texas, and he says a finesse jig has been working. I got on a little bit of a jig bite the other day.
I feel as we progress throughout the year, it's the big, heavy 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce jig in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
We're still angry at everything. And then as we get later in the year, it's like, I still want to catch one on a jig, but it's going to be a crappie jig by the time winter comes along.
Yeah.
Catch one on a jig, because they've seen it so many dang jigs between spring and now. So
yeah. Next Level Podcast. Good to have you on here, man. That's a new one to us. Red Eye Shad has been working. Yeah, lipless is really good in the fall for sure.
I've caught some this year, surprisingly, on our lakes with red-eyed shad.
Mm-hmm.
So
all I end up doing with the red eye shad is snagging carp and drum, and all my buddies catch them on it. I just snag everything in the lake with it.
I tell you what, we had a ITT Illinois Team Trail Classic. It's been, like 10 years ago, and we were on a red eye shad bite. And I mean, it was one of those weeks that you dream of in practice. Like, we won every day of practice, I promise you that. And it was, and not exaggerating, we pull in a cove, and it was between a 4 and a 7 that we'd catch in one cast.
That's awesome.
And it was like, okay, we got this figured out. We quit practicing. It's like, we got to go find some other stuff. Ran all up and down the lake. Would check it the day before the tournament, like pulled into 2 coves. They were still there. Go out there on the day of the tournament, nothing, not a bite. Everything changed. But that whole week, I probably lost 8 or 10 red eye shads. Was buying the bait shops out of red eye shads, because I would catch them on, like, I caught hoop nets, I caught like beach towels.
Yeah.
You name it, I caught it that week on that red eye shad. But that's all we threw. We were wearing the paint off of them. So, but you're throwing them in a foot of water and rock. I mean,
yeah.
So,
yeah, Doug went under the knife recently.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Doug Retrieval, he's one of our buddies, and he got the rotator cuff surgery, and
that sucks.
Yeah, he's immobile for another couple of weeks, but he did get a good report. I think he's going to be able to start rehab a little bit earlier than what he expected. So
we talked to him on the phone the other day. His rehab's going to be taking me on some guide trips.
All right.
Capello. He said as long as he can drive the boat, he's fine.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I think we all got the same plan. He's trying to get somebody down there to drive him around a little bit and get out of the house.
I think he's willing to just drive you around and watch you catch fish. But
that's what he said. He said we could take his boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm good with that. Let's see here. We fish out of Jonathan and myself fish out of 16-foot aluminum boats. So when somebody offers a 20-foot glass boat with a live scope and
I think
360,
a lot of it's just the area, because you were down at Wapapella yesterday where we're talking about fishing at, and just to get around in our 16-foot boat with a 10 horse on it, I mean, it takes a while to move around. When you go from a 5-mile run, which would take you 5 to 10 minutes maybe
in a big boat,
yeah, it's going to take us a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
and the duck hunters. I was telling Jonathan earlier, there were duck hunts everywhere.
Open this weekend.
Yeah. Yes, open Saturday. Yeah.
And I couldn't really see the decoys until I was staying. So Wapapella has a real narrow creek channel. And when it gets down to winter pool, you got a creek channel. Well, I haven't been on that lake by myself in probably like 20 years. I've been in the boat with Doug a couple of times, and he's a river rat. He's up there in the river and he knows where to run. So I just kind of sit back and let it happen. But yesterday I was really having to pay attention to where I was at, and it's up enough to where you're going to be okay. But I couldn't see the river buoys because there were duck blinds just kind of scattered in between the buoys. And if you were in between a buoy and a duck blind, you couldn't see the buoy. So I was nervous, and there's gunshots being fired out there. And I finally went back behind some island and way back as far in this creek as I could where nobody was at. And I just kind of relaxed.
And
you hear
I tell you what, those guys down there that duck hunt, you run through at the wrong time and you might be getting some steel slung at you.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they're serious.
He said, stay away from me. I was kind of running, and I thought the first duck blind that I came up to, it looked like it was vacant. I didn't see a boat or anything. And as I got closer, I saw all these decoys like everywhere.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
made a hard 90 and just peeled out and went back the way I came, and then kind of just
Well,
got away from that stuff.
the other big problem is you're in a John boat.
Yeah.
That's what they hunted out of John boat. So if you came through in your Ranger, your glass boat, wouldn't have been as big of a deal because they would have known you were fishing. But heck, they could think you're out there trying to steal a spot.
You're just messing with them.
Right.
Well, and so if I remember right, down there at Wappapello, so you draw at the beginning, early season, way before season starts, you draw for your position and you pay for that position. It's like $5 to pay for the draw or whatever, but you get to pick your spot where you want it on the lake. Well, if you don't hunt by a certain time of day in your blind, anybody can access that blind.
Really?
It's open. It's free game. So you can have your perfect blind set up with all your decoys out, and then somebody could come. If you don't hunt it that day, somebody could come hunt.
Oh, that sounds like a recipe for an old-fashioned hillbilly fight.
Oh, hillbilly beatdown is what that sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So
that's that's rough.
You go out to your blind, there's somebody sitting in it.
Yeah.
That can be a bad deal.
So
Seth said, is Luke Duncan's jig out yet? I don't know. I heard him talking about it last week or the week before that it was really, really close. So I'm sure he'll let you know. And if I hear anything, I'll definitely let you guys know. Let's see here. Winter, Ron. What's up, Ron? Uncle Ron on here. Winter starts Saturday. Yeah, we got a nasty cold front coming through. Did you see that? Like,
I'm excited about it.
Are you?
Yeah, so I'm a waterfowl hunter, so I got a reservation on
Saturday. Yeah, I'll be climbing in a tree stand.
I bet you will.
Yeah, how'd your evening hunt go yesterday?
Well, I took care of some predator problems, but that was all I was successful with. Got rid of a couple coyotes, but that was it. So
okay.
That's not a bad thing. That saves the spring turkey season. And
man, they're horrible on our place. It's just so bad. Every time the turkeys are on the ground, I mean, here they come. They're just stalking them. It's bad. So I was only able to kill one, but we're slowly getting rid of them this year.
The farm that I used to hunt out west of here, it was almost every set. If I was in a field, in the woods, it wasn't so bad, but in the fields, I'd have them come out and run deer out of my field, and every chance I got, I flung an arrow at one of them. So
I've had them every hunt so far. I've had them, so it's tough.
Marfell made it home safely. He had his axle basically got trashed down there at Truman Lake.
Really?
Yeah, he had to do the ratchet strap and
that's bad
all the way home. Yeah, so shout out
the
to
whole axle or just one side of the axle?
I guess
just one side.
Okay.
Yeah, he lost basically lost the whole wheel on one side. So
okay,
he was strapped up and ratchet strapped and chained. It was.
I know the feeling. I had that happen on the way to Kincaid. I lost I was my Ranger, and it had the oil bath hubs, and I lost one of the hub covers. And if you know anything about oil baths,
it's over.
You're done. And so I saw it happen. Like, I just randomly looked in the rearview mirror and I saw something like bouncing down the highway. I'm like, that's weird. What was that? And pulled over and look around, and there's oil just rolling down you got it with me. So we went back and looked for it, but I mean, I didn't carry one of those spare with me up until that point. Beyond that point, I had a spare with me before I went. But it wasn't something that you could just go to the hardware store and get. So I did the same thing. I ratchet strapped that axle up and limped it on home. So
yeah, I didn't know what to do. He was asking me. I'm like, dude, I don't have any idea.
Yeah, Caleb says, hopefully this cold front brings ducks down. There weren't many flying around on Truman this past weekend.
Yeah.
I would say yesterday there were shots about every 30 minutes. Probably you'd hear a series of pop, 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 pop,
which
pop,
isn't very good for
very good.
Opening weekend of duck season.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't really sure.
So should be a quite.
You got all the bread eaters this time of year you can kill. So
yeah,
there were two ducks. As soon as I pulled up in the marina, there were two ducks right there at the boat ramp. It was hilarious, and they pulled right up to my boat. And they were sitting right by my boat. I was literally from me to you to them.
They knew you were
locals.
You know,
you didn't have a gun
on, and they would have been gone.
Yeah, if I put camouflage on, they would have been gone. Yeah, exactly. Well, so we've been talking hunting, man. Let's talk a little bit about you, Matt. Give us a little background on like where you live, what you do, and some of your that kind of stuff. Because I this is the first time we really met, so I'd like to let the folks at home get a feel for you on that side of things.
Yeah, no, I live down at Table Rock Lake, as you can see by the sign back here and the map on one side and the sign on the other. Just live at Shell Knob. Spend a lot of time on Table Rock. Definitely not my favorite lake. I'm more of a shallow water kind of guy. So I've had some success down here, but I prefer some of the dirty water lakes. But yeah, I've been chasing these bass for a long time now. It's crazy. I look back, and I started fishing as a co-angler in the Redman series when I was 19, I guess, in 1990. Or no, I guess it was been 2000. And moved to the front of the boat a couple years later, and been chasing them ever since. It's been crazy.
The old Redman days.
Yep.
Did you ever fish in the Redmans?
No, I didn't. I think the first BFL I fished was, I think, the same year you did, in 2015.
Yeah,
that's
when you and I started.
Yeah. So it's actually, that's been what, 7 years, 8
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
It
goes by quick.
You've been at it. I've taken, I think, 2 years off.
Yeah, I took a year off when
the rates went way up.
Yeah, right before Major League Fishing bought FLW out. Every year they keep bumping up their tournament weights in the BFLs, and I think it's when I first got in 2015, it was $100 on the co side, and then the last year that FLW owned it, I think it was $165. It had been
it just kept going up.
Yeah, and then Kentucky Lake was declining. Kentucky Lake's about 2 hours from our house, so that's the division that we were fishing, and it just kept getting tougher and tougher, and the tournament rates kept going up, and I sat out for a year, and then the next year I think I fished 1 or 2 of them, and then I started fishing the Ozarks division with Marfell.
But then they had dropped once MLF bought them, they dropped their prices.
Yeah, that's when I started. Yep. I got into both the divisions. I fished some of the LBL and then the full season of the Ozarks, and this year I fished both. I fished the LBL and the Ozark division.
So what were the rates this year?
They're 100 on the coast side, 200 on the motor.
Yeah,
the super tournaments 150 and 300. I think.
I think they raised them for next year. I haven't looked. Somebody was saying they raised them going into next year again, but I haven't looked.
Oh.
The one thing that I heard the other day, and I don't know if this is true, you guys will know. Did you have to pay for the regional?
We had to pay for the regional.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's the first time I remember that happening.
Yeah, I remember paying for regionals.
Yeah, it was the first year that they did it because they were going to pay back double. They said so.
I got you.
I didn't look at the payout, but that was the big deal on it. Was paying back double for the regional. So I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, they paid down 40 places this year, and I don't know what they had done in the past. But it seemed, I don't know, they pay out. It's still not that great of a payout unless you finish.
No, if you don't win it, you're not making any money.
No,
it's they pay down, and we've talked to them a lot about it. I'm sure you guys have too. And there's especially out of the guys in the front of the boat, these guys being able to go home and tell their wives that, well, I cashed a check. You know, that's all they want to say. They don't want to say that they spent $1,000 on the trip and they got a $140 check, but they just, want to say they cashed a check. And I like with that full field last year, they're paying down 70. We had 230 boats. They're paying like 77 places or something like that.
Wow.
At each event last year. I mean, it's crazy.
20%.
So yeah, like 1 in 4, 1 in 4, 1 in 3,
something like that. I mean, I made as a co-angler, I think I cashed a check in. I fished 10 events, I guess, and I think I cashed a check in 6 of them, 5 of them. But I was kind of loosely doing the math. I probably broke even as a co-angler, and that's a co-angler. I don't have the boat expense other than giving your boater $40 or $50 in gas.
Yes, yeah.
I didn't have all the pre-fishing expense and stuff. So
yeah, but it's hard. They're one of the few circuits that's lasted. You think about it. Especially in this area, we had. I went from the Redman circuit out of the back of the boat, and then I started fishing the Heartland, and then it went away, and so I was fishing the Central Pro-Am, and then that went away, and now full circle back to fishing BFLs. Again, and now we've started that Oak Outdoors event, so it's kind of an elite style event. So we're fishing those, and
is it solo?
Yeah, it's a solo deal, two-day solo, kind of higher end. It's only I keep saying JP Cell is running it, but a few of us got together and really put the idea together. 100 boat max field, 10,000 guaranteed for first place, so 100% payback. It's pretty unique event. pays way down. 20th place, you're still $400 entry fee. You're still getting paid like $600. So it's a good event.
Well, that's not terrible though. $400 for a chance to win 10.
No, there's nothing else out there. And I mean it's not just 10 grand. I think I don't have the payout in front of me, but don't quote me on this, but it's like 10,000 for first and like 6,000 for second. And I mean it's really, really good payback because he's busted his butt and got some fantastic sponsors to pave the way. So all of the entry fee monies are 100% going right back to the anglers. So
is there a championship on that, or is it just?
Yeah, the plan is this year to have a championship. So we're going to fish. The first one for this year is the first weekend of December, the second, third, and fourth at Lake of the Ozarks. And I know we still have like 12 open spots. Last I checked, we had 88 entries, and like I said, we take 100. And then the next one is June. I believe that's on Table Rock, and then August on Bull Shoals, and then a championship to be announced. So lots of big things on the championship we're hoping for. So can't let the cat out of the bag on it yet because none of it's in stone. But if it gets in stone, there won't be any other tournament circuits around like it really, especially for solo events. So
that's hard to come by. I mean, even on in the big regional area, I mean, you can't find solo events. That's kind of more local, even at that. I mean, that you're fishing 3 lakes.
I like how it's spread out too.
Yeah, 3 lakes, fairly close, good distance between them.
Yeah,
and you're fishing for, opportunity to win 30 grand throughout the year. I mean, that's.
But I like the dates too. The dates are spread out, so you can fit all your other tournaments. If you fish a lot of tournaments, you got a nice big space in between them all.
That was the number one thing we said when we started talking about it was let's not step on any other. We don't want people to have to choose. If you want to fish our event, we shouldn't be on top of anything else. And I know there's always going to be circuits that are going to intentionally put events on top of, other ones just to make you choose. But our goal was to specifically not do that. We wanted people to be able to fish it if they wanted to. And you guys know how it is. It's hard. You look at your schedule with your buddies and you sit down and you're like, okay, which circuit are we going to fish? These 3 conflict with this one, and so on and so forth. Man, that's tough. It's so frustrating because I want to support them all. It's all good guys, and it's hard.
Yeah, I'm going to fish the Anglers in Action with Marfell down there at Lake of the Ozarks. And 2 of those tournaments are scheduled on top of the BFLs and the LBL division.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that happens. You got 3 tournaments in Anglers in Action, and you got 5 in the BFLs, but 2 of them are scheduled on top of each other. They just happen to line up that way.
Yeah. And it's hard with the BFLs being a national deal. They don't come out with their circuits till way late. No, you can't sit around and wait to come out with your dates, and they're the hardest ones to work with. Just because I hate to say they don't care, but they don't. I mean, their schedule's their schedule. So what it's going to be is what it's going to be.
Well, they're fighting the same battle that everybody else is, right? I mean, you got to pull permits. You got to get the venue to take your 260 boat field. You can't just throw that out of any ramp on any day.
Yeah, and they might have tournaments going in 10 different states at once. They can't. I mean, that's tough.
Right.
You only have so many staff members, so you gotta take the weekends that are available.
Yeah, there's not an unlimited amount of trailers and trucks out there.
And then they're running BFLs, they're running Toyota Series, they're running the Invitationals, and then the VPT. They got a lot of.
They got a lot going on
to pull it out.
They get a pass for whatever reason.
Yeah. Russ says, ask Matt if he thinks they should introduce some type of grass or a slot limit to help Table Rock. The lake isn't near as good as it was in the 80s and 90s. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, it's hard. So I don't disagree that the lake isn't as good as what it once was to me. But then you go out and you look at these tournaments. You go back any time in history and a 5-fish limit. If you come in with 17, 18 pounds, you might not win, but you're going to be at the top. In that Anglers this year, I'd have to go back and look, but I think I had my team partner and I had over 17 in all 3 events, and we got a pat on the back and a thanks come again in all of them. Each event took 24, 25 pounds. The big thing that I've noticed is these fish have changed. They're not on the banks anymore. Table Rock pulled water all year last year. Actually, for about the last 3 years, they haven't stopped running water. And these fish are out in the middle of the lake chasing these balls of shad, and these live scopers are kicking our tails. I think if they put grass in, I think it would change things tremendously, and I'd be super happy if they did. It would bring it right back more to my style. I mean, I had a live scope all year. That's just, you didn't have, if you want an opportunity to win, you better be out in 100 feet of water chasing those deep fish. And these young guys, you guys know how it is. These kids are kicking our tails doing it. It's impressive.
I'm trying to be one of those, but I get frustrated when I know I can go catch a 4 to 5.5 pounder out of the grass. So why would I?
Yeah, the hard part for me doing it is these guys that are really good, because I've got an opportunity to fish with a couple of them. They're on, if it doesn't look like a 4 pounder on their graph, they don't cast at it. They just keep moving. They might only make 20 or 30 casts all day, and I'm not joking. Wow. I mean, they'll just chase these, look around for individual fish. I know a young kid, and that's done extremely well chasing crappie tour, and he can look on his graph and tell you within 2 or 3 ounces what that crappie's going to weigh. And same deal, he only makes a few casts a day. I mean, just he basically casts to what he needs to catch. He doesn't waste his time on anything else.
I know I don't want to turn this into a live scope, but you've been with those guys, right? This is kind of selfish knowledge for me. How far are they ranged out when they can see that?
So they're, with the crappie is a lot different. I mean, he's usually got his stuff 30, 40 feet. Okay. But on the bass stuff, usually 70 to 100. Okay. When, the 100, those guys that's usually when you're out there in the middle and you're trying to, you're running your trolling motor on high and chasing them down. And so if you don't have it out that far, they can get away from you in a hurry. And I've spent a lot of time doing it this year. And like I said, I had some pretty good success, but man, you get out there with those guys and you don't realize how not good you are.
Well, kind of going back to that question about the lakes in the 80s and the 90s. And I think it doesn't matter. Insert whatever lake, Table Rock, Ozarks, Cedar Lake, Wapapello, you name a lake. Everybody remembers the 80s and the 90s, the 2000s of the next decade will always be better than what it is today, because in our memory, we remember the good times. You don't remember the 4 years that we struggled at Kentucky Lake.
Yeah.
You remember the year before that where we were bringing in 20, 25 pound bags regularly, and you were getting a pat on the back and attaboy and sent on your way with your tail between your legs for catching 23 pounds.
Yep.
So I agree with you. The lakes sometimes seem like they're not as good as they used to be, but they're never as good as the best day that you had 10 years ago.
And they go in cycles.
It's hard to remember those bad days. I mean, you only want to really remember the good ones. Like you said, that's it. Mm-hmm. My first 3 top 10s that I had on Table Rock Lake out of the front of the boat were, I had less than 13 pounds in all of them. The first one I finished 5th place and I had 1098. So that was a 200 boat BFL tournament. So, it's there, and that was probably in 2002. So, think about, if you catch 10 pounds today, you don't even bother weighing them in sometimes. So.
Right.
Unless it's in the fall.
Right.
September, whenever that Toyota owners tournament is, sometimes 10 pounds will get you pretty far in that one.
Man, they're tough to catch. And this lake has been known for that forever. There's like a 2 or 3 week period that they are hard to catch.
Yeah. It's crazy how that, I think that happens just about everywhere. There's fall that it's worse than the post spawn funk to me.
I was going to say, you could see it on a weekend where if you're off, you're off. And if you're on, same weekend, if you're on, you caught 25 pounds. And the guy that you talked to in the parking lot that fished the same lake, the same derby, caught 4 pounds. And,
and I don't know a ton about it, but if you kind of look, if you're a big deer hunter or bow hunter, it seems to correspond a lot with that October lull, where the deer where you're seeing them out in the fields every day and you're seeing 20, 30 deer a night. And then all of a sudden you don't see anything. You go days without seeing a single deer. And that's when the fish stop biting. I don't know if it has something corresponding that same time of year, but I'm telling you, if you go and look, it's always around the same time period. And then it's like a light switch turned on and all of a sudden, boom, they're running crazy and the bass are eating again.
Well, a lot of it, we need a weather event too, right? You need a cold front. You need
something,
a rainstorm, something to deer to hunker down for the day and then get up and get active. For me, a rainstorm around here, especially this time of the year or this year with no rain in the last, noticeable rain, at least in the last couple of months. Every time it rains, it's the day to be on the lake if you want to catch a big stringer bass.
Yeah. Man, I've been liking this no rain thing down here with the lake right here is because I'm able to go out and look around and I'm like, oh, that's why I've caught fish there for the last 10 years. And I never even realized what the bottom looked like, and I can see it now. So I need to spend a lot more time out taking some pictures and stuff, knowing what I'm looking at.
For sure. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know existed that I ran across, and it had to be within inches of my prop.
That's scary.
Yeah. Mike sent a couple pictures on Table Rock when it was, I guess it's still like 7 foot low or so.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And, a lot of the little structures that were normally just a few feet under the water, just like man-made rock piles and all kinds of different things that are exposed now. It's a great time to go out there and put some waypoints in the old raft.
There's some guys here in the neighborhood. I can tell you guys this. They're having all sorts of boats hit the stumps and different things out here because the lake's been high forever, and half these people that live down here come down in the summer don't live anywhere near here. They're all from Kansas or whatever. And so a couple of the guys here in the neighborhood took their lawn chairs out and had their wives drop them off, and they sat out on one of the little islands out here. And it's about a foot deep that all these people kept running over and tearing their boats up on. And you should have seen everybody's face when they're driving by, like, what the heck? There's an island, because it was 6 inches under the water at this time. They're just sitting out there drinking beer with their cooler out in the middle of the lake on this island. There's no buoys or anything. So
head turner. Yeah, I see those. I see a lot of the pleasure boaters. They just run wherever. They don't even pay attention.
I tell you what, we're seeing that though right now at the Mississippi River. We live right on the Mississippi River, and there's not, when you see the Mississippi River.
Oh man,
it's a big, wide body of water.
Yeah.
What you don't realize is that big, wide body of water is only that deep.
Yeah, there's a channel, and you get, even though there's 400 or 500 yards of water outside the channel, and it looks like it's 20 feet deep.
Yep,
it's not. It's a
deep.
Huge sand flat. And it shifts around too. Yep. It's not the same year to year.
And then if the water's high, then they got the dikes and the wing dams that you don't see.
Yeah.
I've been out on the river, and we've been white bass fishing and got stuck on a sandbar, and trolling motor got stuck. But the current is ripping so hard you can't get your trolling motor up. So you literally have to fire up the big motor, bump it just to get the trolling motor up, and then there you go down the
That's some
river.
sketchy stuff out there on the river.
It is sketchy.
Darius says smallmouth crush had the guy that caught the 10.15 pound smallmouth
that was
on Erie.
Did you see that?
What a monster.
You can almost stick your fists in that thing's mouth.
I didn't think that was possible.
That's crazy.
Is that a world? I haven't looked it up. Is that a world record?
I don't know, but gosh, it's got to be close.
I didn't know that existed. That is insane.
No, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't know the story. I'll have to go back and.
I know it was on Lake Erie.
Yeah, that's all I knew is Erie. Yeah.
I haven't heard, how he caught it, what he was doing. I know Frank Scalish is supposed to be jumping on Bass Talk Live this Thursday because he was out on Erie the same day. He said he was about 5 miles away.
It is not the world record.
It's not the world record. What's the world record?
No kidding.
11.15.
12 pounder.
Holy cow!
What was that caught?
Dale Hollow.
Dale Hollow.
1955.
Okay, so that's some of those old records. I'm not 100%. It is what it is, right? It's the record.
Yeah. They weighed them at the grocery store back then.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Tough. Yeah, a little hard to compare for sure.
Sherry said she's trying to restock milfoil in Table Rock Lake, a handful at a time.
All right. I like it.
Appreciate your efforts,
I wouldn't publicize that too much.
Yeah. We're going to forget that was said, but I like it. High five.
I like it. I hope it sticks, man.
Yeah.
Was there ever grass in Table Rock?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Well, we've had some in Stockton back and forth a few times, but then with these low water levels, it's gone. But it was getting a pretty good hold in a few areas, but I don't know. I don't think it'll make this low water levels now.
There's good and bad to grass. The guys that fish grass like us, all year long, every year, never dies off. It's kind of like, man, I just want to go throw a crankbait down a rock bank every once in a while.
Yeah.
And we can't do that here. There's not a bank that you can go throw a crankbait on a rock here in the lakes that we fish. But I would love to see it. But then again, I'd miss my grass come this time of the year where you can pretty well guarantee you're going to go out there and catch 15 to 25 every trip out of the grass. So
Russ says the islands where the White and the James meet. Is that the
island?
Yeah,
well, that's not the one I was talking about, but yeah, I've seen people smoke that one this year already. Yeah, he's exactly right.
Yep. Mike says, chase those live scope fish, leave the dock fish to him.
Hey.
I didn't know Mike knew how to skip a jig underneath the dock.
I've never seen him throw a jig in my life.
I didn't know he had anything else. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'd like to go through his boat and see if he owns anything else.
He's got 2 boxes in there. They're both full of jigs.
Yeah.
There's the half-ounce jig box and the
well, there might be
3/4 ounce.
There might be
box.
4 different colors. And
yeah. Hey, it's worked for him for a long time.
Yeah. It's a common. Whenever you got confidence, you can make it work most of the time. So we're talking about jigs and stuff. Let's dive into the Lake of the Ozarks Major League Fishing BFL Super Tournament that you won not too long ago. First of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'm always wondering how things happen when somebody has a successful tournament, like leading up to the tournament, the practice, the preparation, that kind of stuff. Can you take us through your pre-fishing and what you found out there that led you to make those decisions on day 1, day 2, and ultimately get the win?
Man, first off, I have to tell you guys the best thing that I've done, and I would recommend this to anybody out there, is find a group of guys you can trust, that you can travel with and practice with. There's a group of us that run together, 5 or 6 of us that travel to virtually every tournament together, and we are 100% open book with one another. And we've created a deal that if there's something that you don't want to share, you just say, I don't want to share. There's never a lie told in our group. And man, when it comes to practicing, you can cover an entire lake like Lake of the Ozarks in a couple days when you're practicing that way. And it's changed things so much over the last few years. We were figuring it up the other day, and in the last 2 years, and just in BFLs, we've got let's see, 4 wins and an angler of the year out of our group that travels together. So wow. That's it's a game changer. It really is. You can do so much that way. And so that I have to start with that. That's kind of where I started. Aaron Martin, he got up there a couple days early and started catching some fish flipping docks. So we knew the dock bite was on. So I started with that. He was flipping shallow docks. So I got with him and kind of figured out what he was doing. He was at a completely different area of the lake, but I tried to work doing the same thing in another area. And just I kept elaborating and going further and further. And that's kind of how I ended up to where I was, what I figured out, which is something that Mike had taught me years ago. And that's swimming that football jig around those docks. And it's, we can go into a lot more detail with that, but it's honestly the group working as a group is what put me to where I was able to win it.
So do you typically, you guys all split up and fish different sections, or do you just play it by ear when, the week of the tournament?
Just play it by ear. Wherever you want to fish, you fish. And then, and it's nice. A lot of times somebody will say, hey, I already fished that creek. They're in there. Don't mess with it. Save it for tournament. And that way we're not beating up the same fish too.
Mm-hmm. How do you address that though? Tournament day, like you went in that creek, you found fish, and John went in the same creek and he found fish. And it's a small area. Maybe you found the same group of fish. What do you guys?
It's happened. It's happened multiple times. I'll tell you a little story. We were at fishing a Central Pro-Am, and at that time there was only 4 of us working together, and it was terrible. It was down here at Table Rock in February, and the fishing was extremely tough. and I got on a little dock deal. It was the last week of February, the water temperature in the 40s, and I told the other guys, and we kind of elaborated from that point, and we just split it up. Okay, I'm going to fish from this point down lake. You're going to fish from this point up lake, which was all great, except we never decided who got that point. And back then in the Central Pro-Am, there was no takeoff. You actually got there and you could make your first cast at 7 a.m. Well, as the sun comes up, I see a boat on the other side of the dock that I'm getting ready to fish, and it was Aaron on the exact same dock in the same creek getting ready to fish it. And yeah, it's just one of those deals. I ended up, I think the first day I had the lead, and he was 2/100ths of a pound behind me, and then I was lucky enough to end up winning the tournament. But it's crazy, you know, that. So yeah, that does happen, but we're all close enough friends, we're good with it. And if somebody, especially if it's a multiple day event, whoever's doing well, they get to take the lead on that. Derek Felton and I just ran into that over at Grand Lake. He and I practiced together, and Chris Bunk. The three of us practiced for 3 days together over there. And I went out the first day, and I couldn't catch him. I could not get him in the boat. And he came out and was in second. I think Chris was in fourth. So the second day of the tournament, that night, I just said, hey, here's all my waypoints. Go for it. I didn't fish anything the second day. As a matter of fact, I was on the trailer at noon because the last thing I want to do is hurt him. He took the lead the second day, and the wind killed him on the third day, or I really think he would have won the regional. So it's just, you know, that is the deal. Chris ended up second on the co-angler side in the regional. So all doing the same thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, Chris. Let's see. Derek Felton's right here. He's got a question, kind of sidetrack a little bit, but he says, ask Matt what size gold-plated bomb or popper he uses in the fall.
Man, that's an old time joke from back in the Bass Open days, when one of the guys that won an event, they asked him what he caught it on. He told him he caught it on a gold-plated bomber popper, and every tackle store in the area down in Louisiana, I think it was, got phone calls trying to figure out where the heck you get a gold-plated bomber popper.
That's all it takes, man. That's good old doc talk.
It's at Walmart, and it comes in a rattle can.
Yeah,
and you got to make it yourself.
Yeah, I remember those old. They'd make those novelty lures sometimes. Like it'd have a little mini bush light can.
Yeah,
on it, treble hooks. I think I got one of those somewhere.
You know, some kid threw that and caught a giant.
I'm sure they've caught
it. Guarantee it.
Sometimes.
What'd you catch it on? You know that lure that Bassmaster sent us that had the bush light can on it? Yep, that's what I caught on today.
Yep.
Guarantee it's happened.
Next thing you know, they're going for $100 on eBay. It's just the way it works.
That's right.
So after practice, I mean, so you kind of you figured out that there was a jig bite on docks going, or a dock bite going. Did you try to find anything else, or did you just try to expand on that pattern
I just tried to expand on that pattern. So I could not catch him swimming a jig in practice. And I called Mike, and he's like, dude, I'm catching them on it. You just got to stick with it. You might just not be on the right set of docks or whatever. That they're eating it. And I know Mike, he's on. You guys have had him on the show, I know, multiple times, and he's honest as the day is long. And so I knew it'd work. So Friday before the tournament, with like 2 hours left, I said, you know what, I'm going to go hit a little area where I've caught them in before and swim the jig, and I'm going to run over there and see if they'll eat it. And I ran down that stretch, and I caught two good ones. Just in like four casts, I caught two good ones. And I thought, okay, this is they might eat it. And fast forward the tournament, and I went to my primary area where I really thought I'd catch a good bag. And at 10 o'clock, I hadn't caught a fish. And I finally caught one, and it was, I was just flipping a little 1/2-ounce jig on the bottom, and I caught a 5-pounder. I thought, okay, I can do this. Well, another 2 hours goes by, and I've caught a 12-inch Kentucky, and I've got that 5-pounder in the boat. And those are the only two bites I've had at this point. And I was kind of getting spun out. My co-angler was trying to keep me held together because I was like, dude, what the heck? And I don't know why I hadn't gone. It was dead calm that morning. I know it was a lot of the reason. I don't like to swim a jig if the wind's blowing. And it's just in my head more than it is the fish, but that's just, I'd never have caught them while the wind wasn't blowing. Well, there was a big boat show up the Osage Arm, which is where I was fishing. And so all these boats were coming from everywhere up there. So all the docks I wanted to fish just had waves crashing against them like crazy. So I thought, well, hell, the wind's not blowing, but it's got boat traffic, all these boat wake hitting it. So I had less than 20 minutes left to fish before I had to head back. Cause as you know, that lake's awful rough that time of year. I had to give myself well over an hour to get back. And I picked that 3/4 ounce Jewel football jig. I've actually got one right here, if you can see it. Just nothing fancy, just Jewel football jig with like a pocket chunk style trailer on it. And I picked that up.
What color jig is that?
This one's, I don't even know for sure what they call it. It's just kind of got like a peanut butter in the front and a kind of shag color in the back. I throw peanut butter and jelly a lot too. I'll be 100% honest with you guys. Color makes no difference at all. I've tried every color there is. That's just the one I had tied on.
Yeah.
As long something shad colored or something dark, I've tried everyone out there and it doesn't matter. But I ended up with catching 17 pounds in the last 20 minutes. And then the next day, gave me a ton of confidence for the second day. And I mean, they ate it the second day. I was able to throw it all day. And I'd go back and forth between this little 1/2 ounce. If you want to see my little 1/2 ounce jig, when I get in super shallow water, it's kind of like an arky head. Just it's a little bit redesigned arky head. It skips really well in that I fish this in less than 3 feet of water. And then when I go to swim in it, when I get over like 4 feet, I go back to the 3/4 or the 1/2 ounce football jig. And the big thing that really, really made a difference for me is, and this is not a promotion of their products. That's not, I don't have a sponsorship or anything. Jewel paired with Virtus and started creating those Virtus rods.
Yeah.
And I talked to Gale a while back, and he was telling me that he's got 2 different ones. One is a stunner. I've actually got it here if you want to see like exactly what it says on it. This is the stunner. This is the one I throw the 1/2 ounce on.
And is that the red diamond or the blue diamond series?
This is a red diamond.
Okay.
Yep. It's a red diamond stunner. It's a 610. And when I first picked it up, I thought, man, this is not going to be heavy enough for that 1/2 ounce jig. I need a little more backbone. I was wrong. I could put that jig in places, even that 1/2 ounce football jig, I can put it in places I couldn't believe that I could put it. I mean, I know nobody was putting their jig in those areas. And then for the 3/4, I actually went to the Titan. It's the same rod. It's the red diamond. I'll try to grab it here too. It's perfect for that 3/4. But yeah, it's just a 7-foot Titan. I think you can maybe see it there. Again, and switching to those rods made an absolute world of difference. And like I said, I've got no skin in the game in saying that, but it was the difference maker. I can honestly tell you, and that's, when Mike showed me how to do this years ago, I didn't know until this year. The reason I wasn't catching fish like he was, I didn't have the right setup. And I know it's different for everybody, and everybody likes their rod their own way, but I can put that jig now in places I couldn't before. And that's, you guys know how hard that lake gets pressed. Man, being able to put in where maybe that fish hasn't seen 5 jigs on their head, like he was saying earlier, these fish have seen 50 jigs by the time I've been there. So maybe getting a little bit further back in there, a different angle is a big difference. So.
Yeah, and those rods, I actually have the red diamond. I have one of the red diamond Virtus Jewel rods. It's the 7'2" swim jig rod, and it's ridiculously sensitive and well balanced, super light. It's a great rod. And so back to the length of that rod, that kind of goes against tradition. 6'10". You don't think about throwing slinging a jig back there with a 6'10" rod, but it makes total sense because, a shorter rod, you can be a whole lot more accurate, especially around, docks and tight quarters and stuff. You can you can move around, change your angle and get that bait back there. And if it's got the the horsepower to get the fish out of there, then why wouldn't you fish, that shorter rod like that? I know punching grass. There was kind of a trend of going to really long rods, like an 8-foot rod. I have a 7'11" rod, but I've also punched grass with like a 7.4, and you can definitely do it with the 7.4. You can be a little bit more accurate, and the same thing with the dock skipping and stuff. I fished with Donovan Hensley in the Super Tournament down there, and he was using a 7'2" rod for doing his skipping. So, and he was super, super accurate. So I definitely think there is a place for, a little bit shorter rod, and especially something like that Virtus rod that's super, super sensitive. You can feel those bites back up underneath all that stuff.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Going back to that tournament we were talking about on Table Rock when we were flipping docks down here, Aaron was out with me, and he's like, "Why are you using such a short rod?" And that was before I had these rods. I was using a 610. It was a Loomis rod. I said, "Well, because I'm tired of breaking my rods on the roof of the dock when I set the hook."
Yeah.
And it sounds dumb, but I've broken 2 high-dollar rods. I was using a 7.6. I'd set the hook and I'd smack it against the roof of the dock when you'd be in there tight. And now you've gone to these shorter ones, and I can be a lot more accurate with it, and you can get in a lot tighter in those areas. I like it.
Well, we talk about fishing in the 80s and the 90s. I didn't fish a lot in the 80s, but I fished in the 90s. And a 7-foot long rod was a long rod. Yeah, granted, technology.
That was like a telescoping flipping stick.
Yeah. But granted, technologies came a long way, but you don't have to have that long rod to get them in.
Yeah.
I think the punching rod, going back to the punching rod, I know you guys don't have a lot of grass down there, or zero grass down there, but when we punch, I think a lot of that's for when they run. You got to have something to pick up line in a hurry.
You got to move them. You use that long rod to get them
if
out
they're
of that
biting
grass.
it as soon as it comes down, a 7-foot rod would be just fine. Yep. But if they're taking it and biting it and running, you got to have something to help pick up that line.
Well, I had when I was flipping bushes down at Kentucky Lake, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I just got it was a 7-foot medium heavy. It was a Hawgz Custom light, and I just wanted to take it out and try it. Well, I rigged it up with a 20-pound fluoro, and I put a 1/2 ounce tungsten weight on there, flipping I don't know, it was a beaver or something, some kind of creature bait. But I was flipping bushes with that, and I had no problem getting the fish out of the bushes with that 7-foot. Normally I would have taken like a 7'6", a lot longer rod.
But you were able to hit.
I was a lot more. I was much more accurate, and the rod, if you've got the right rod that's got enough balls behind it to pull those fish out, it doesn't have to be 7'11" or something.
I think that's the biggest problem is finding a rod that matches not necessarily a length, but the power. We see lengths and we go, oh, it's a 7.6. It's got to be a heavy flipping stick,
right?
But I have 3 or 4 7.6 that are pool noodles. I mean, they're cranking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to them, but I want that for the casting distance, not necessarily I'm not looking to be accurate when I'm bombing a 6XD out there at.
Yeah, or a big, dragging a big football jig or, down a ledge or something. Yeah, you want to be able to cast it as far as you can.
Right. But with that football jig, I want to be able to got to have the right jig, right hook in that jig for a long cast. But you want to be able to drive it home, though, too. So.
Yeah, you've got to have that. But I flip bushes with, I kind of go back and forth. Like, it depends how accurate I need to be. I'll use that Titan, something like that. The 7-footer is perfect. Just a lot of times for flipping bushes. But if I'm in some really woolly stuff, I'll go to that 7.6. And I've really changed my hook set. You guys think I'm crazy, but like flipping buckbrush and that kind of stuff. You guys, I've always been told and shown. I mean, you just hammer them as hard as you can and get them coming your way. And I've started almost just kind of pulling on them. And if you don't crack them, they will swim right out of the stinking bush. It's incredible to me. And it seemed I've had 2 different old timers tell me that, and I thought I'm going to try it because it's just my habit of just hammering them as hard as I can. And just a good, hard, solid pull. That hook is buried in them because they're always over the top of the limb, so they've got that pressure against them, and they don't go crazy. They just swim right out. And I've lost so many fewer fish that don't get hung in the bushes now like they used to all the time. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and another thing that helps with that it's something I've been kind of experimenting with the last several years, is using a little bit smaller hook instead of using a big old like 5/0 hook. Go to a 3/0 hook if it works on the bait, because the bigger that hook, the more of it's going to be sticking out of the top of their mouth, and the more likely it is to grab a little tree limb or something on the way out. Grass.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, you got to make sure you got enough gap to get through the plastic, but you don't need as big of a hook as what we think. You just got to have enough gap to get through there. And like I said, the more that's sticking out, the more that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So
good theory. I like that theory. I never even thought. I'm with you, Matt. I didn't even think about.
No, I hadn't either. That's a great idea. As long as you got enough room that the bait's not going to get bunched up on the hook, you're good.
Right. And you'll know pretty quick if it's the right hook for it. But a 3/0, like any good 3/0 hook will fit a lot bigger plastic than what you think. Just a heavy duty 3/0 hook. I use that Superline Gammy a lot, but there's a bunch of good hooks out there.
Now, when you say you changed your hook set, did you change that hook set for all applications or for primarily just flipping bushes?
Just flipping bushes.
Okay. Yeah. You still crack them when they bite it under a dock?
Oh yeah, I can't help it.
Okay.
I don't mean to. It's just it's in my DNA. It just happens to be. I crack them pretty hard, but yeah, for some reason in the bushes, it's it's like they'll just come right out. It's weird. It's like I don't know if they just don't know they're hooked yet or what. When you pop them, they go nuts, I think. But yeah, it's helped me anyway.
I've tried to change my punch and hook set this year, and I can't. Gabe and I are like taking each other's role on, because you used to be a puller, like really soft hook sets, pretty well all around, and did just fine with it. And I'm like, it's
the first time I was in the boat with you and you set the hook, I was like, oh my God, what are you trying to do? You're trying to tear the fish in half.
That's Derek Feldman.
You're trying to take one fish and make it two fish.
I'm mad at every one of them when they bite, because all the rest of them that didn't bite right before that or that I missed, I'm mad at. So I'm gonna take all my aggression out on the one.
Yeah. So if you ever catch a derp in one of these local lakes, it's probably because he set the hook on it. He just didn't have a chance.
No.
When Derek sets a hook, I just duck, because I have a good feeling if it's a small one, it's coming my way.
Well, so that's what I was gonna say. When I'm punching, I have that problem a lot. You catching little fish punching. You got an 8-foot rod with 65-pound braid on it, and you give him the juice, everything you got, and he's coming straight up. I promise. And just like when you miss one punching, you got to watch it, because he's up. You got to kind of go with him, or you're going to lose a rod or break something, because all of that force just took that little fish straight to the roof.
You don't have to set that hook very hard with braid.
I know you don't, but it's hard to get that out of your head to not crack them.
Yeah, you can just that's really all you need to do right there is just pull into them, and they just go right on. But yeah, it's hard to. You have to remember what rod and what line you got in your hand and what you're doing. And it's a lot to remember.
The one problem that I have is when you get owned by one in the grass, and that's going to happen to everybody. Yeah. You're going to set the hook on one that's just going to. It doesn't matter how big your rod is, how heavy your line is, how hard you cracked them, or that you got them the right way. Sometimes they're going to hit it, run up underneath there, and get so balled up you're never going to get
them. I hooked one on a jig at Kincaid the other day. I'll have that video's coming out. I don't know if it's going to come out Wednesday or Friday this week, but I flipped over. I was sitting on this bluff line. It was this underwater bluff. It's really cool. I fished it years ago and I forgot about it, and I just rediscovered it. But it's got a little short shelf on the top. It's about 6 foot, and then it just falls to like 35. It's a straight drop. It's very interesting. I'll show it to you sometime. It's pretty cool. I just discovered it from just running the bank and fishing years ago. But there's a little bit of grass kind of scattered, and there's this couple little mats. I pitched my jig. I was just throwing that 1/2 ounce Cumberland Pro pig jig up there, and I flipped it up there, and it settled. And then my line starts moving underneath the mat. It's plain as day. And I reeled down and I jacked them, and it didn't move. It was a big fish. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a bass or catfish.
Did you get owned?
I couldn't do anything with it. By the time we just kind of stopped right here, and I reeled down and tried to pull, and I could feel him pulling a little bit, and then it just got solid. Like I couldn't, it was a standoff. And I got in there and I tried to like just pull him out, and my jig came out. So I don't know what it was, but yeah. So sometimes that happens. It doesn't matter what kind of rod you got, what kind of line, you're going to set the hook on that fish, and he's going to own you.
And I haven't had it happen this year. And I don't mind it happening. Like if you get owned in the grass by a big one, like, hey, I'd tip the hat to the fish on that one. You got me. You got me. But that's one of the best things to have happen, because you fool the monster for just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fooled him for sure. Andy says his 7'6" St. Croix is at the repair shop getting modified into a 7'2" after breaking the end.
I think we all have different.
Yeah, we all have one of those rods.
Oh,
I remember being a kid and I shut a brand new rod in the door, and I thought my dad was gonna come unglued.
Oh yeah, they don't like that. I've never done that, but I've seen it done. And then you try to get that warranty. You try to explain you broke it on a fish and it's clean. It's a clean break in a door of a car. They know. I mean, they know. They see 1,000 rods a year.
Oh, that's funny.
When I was a kid, I grew up bank fishing for walleye. Is kind of what got me going. And my dad would get so mad at me for setting the hook so hard. And he would always tell me, he's like, hold that hook on your finger and let me pull against it. And you tell me if you need to set the hook that hard. And I always think about that. I'm like, you can't reach in your tackle box and pick up a jerkbait without burying a hook in your finger. And we're jerking like we're trying to pull their heads off.
Right. Well, some of the hooks that we got now are like gaffs, though. I mean, you have to give them the business to get that hook in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron says, I think pressured fish need a different hook set. Fish really seem to spit anymore when you throw the rod tip towards the fish. Yeah, I don't know. Every day is different. Some days, and even different times of the day. Some days if they're more suspended up in the water column, when you flip something in there, you don't even feel a bite. You just see your line move off. That happens a lot. That happens a lot around docks. And then there's some days where they'll thump it. Some days when you feel that thump, it's too late. It's the fish has already picked it up and he's spitting it back out. That's what it feels. So you swing and you're like, so what's going on? I've had them before, especially around the spawn, where you'll see your line swimming and you'll set against the fish and you'll still miss them. I think there's certain times where they just grab the trailer and they're just holding the trailer, swimming off with it. And
oh yeah, if you do a lot of bed fishing, you'll watch them do it. They'll put their mouth down right against that hook and they'll pick it up and they'll set it off the bed and they'll just do it over and over and over and they'll never get that hook in their mouth.
It's so frustrating. Yeah,
and I'm not going to go as far as saying they're smart. I just think they're not wanting to eat it; they're just moving it. So, it's.
I tell you what. I had a weird one this weekend, and it takes. I told my team partner this. It takes some talent to do this, but I caught one on a frog in the eye socket, on the outside.
Yeah.
Outside of the mouth, on top of the head, through the eye socket, and she pummeled the frog. So she completely missed it, obviously, and then of course I felt my line tick a little bit and go down, and gave her the juice and got her in. It was like a 4-pounder, and she was buried in the eye socket. So
yeah,
I don't know how that happens. Like all kinds of crazy stuff. But
I used to do that. I back when we fished P-line, I fished a P-line copolymer, and we used to have to stretch that crap out every time you went to launch the boat. I'd hook it on the back of I'd hook it on my boat or my trailer. And I'd walk all the way across the parking lot and pull it really, really tight, and then I was good for a couple hours. Because it had so much memory.
Oh yeah. That's actually what turned me off of P-line. Like still to this day, I cringe if I have to buy P-line. No, I hope you're not sponsored by P-line, but
no.
like I had one spool of it, and it was that same way. It was like 17, 20-pound test, and I put it on there, and the first cast, it was like a slinky. I mean, just
it was bad,
terrible,
especially
if you've ever got a bad spool of line and. Oh, it'll ruin you. One that's spooled on there backwards, or it's just horrible.
Yeah, you get that. You keep breaking. A lot of times you're losing. You're losing a lot of stuff. Like you're losing a lot of jigs. You're breaking off prematurely, and that stupid one bad spool of line can cost you $30 in baits just from break.
Well, and it could cost. Unfortunately, it could cost a business like a customer.
True
for life. So
yeah, Brock says he uses P-line. I know their fluorocarbon's really good. My buddy Jerry, he's a big P-line fluorocarbon user, and I've had a lot of good spools of P-line too. It's just it always had a lot of memory.
Yeah.
But this is the copolymer. This is not
we're
talking like 15 years.
Yeah,
ago
I'm talking old stuff. Yeah. Old stuff.
That CXX, I think it was.
Yep, that's what it was. CXX. Yeah.
Yeah, it was strong line, but
I think any line that's on the market today, is especially the fluorocarbons, they're all good.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our own that we consistently use. But
I got a bad spool of braid one time, believe it or not, and I broke off 3 A-rigs, and I was like, what the heck? 50-pound braid, and I pulled it out and started pulling on it. I could just pull on it by hand and it would break. I don't know what the deal was.
Huh.
It was one bad, only time I've ever seen it.
I tell you what, I got a spool of yellow braid for crappie fishing a couple months ago, and when I was spooling it on, I always hold on to the line on that spinning reel. I looked at my hand. My hand was just yellow. Just that's not going to last very long.
No, that's not going to last. Yeah, and this was high-end name brand line. I got a bad spool. I don't know if maybe it got, I don't know, wet or something, or it just was mismade. And I have no idea. I actually sent an email to the manufacturer, and they sent me a new spool, and it worked fine. Not that I cared about that. I just was like, what the heck's the deal with this line? Because I'd been using it forever, and one bad spool.
I tell you what, most of these companies, that they want to know that stuff though too, right? If you have a bad experience, they want to know why. Like, what happened on that? Did we have a bad run? What's the breadth and depth of that bad
batch?
Yeah, especially when it's a product you used and you like. They don't want, everybody wants to get on Twitter and say what a piece of crap this product is. Well, okay, if you've been using it for 15 years and you liked it for 15 years, maybe somebody had a bad day that day when they were making it. Let's, get to the bottom of it.
It was Monday and time changed.
No, it's Friday. Yeah. It's Friday and you have union workers and they're ready to start the weekend.
Exactly.
That's you don't want to buy a car off the assembly line on Friday, like Friday at 4:00.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's get back in that tournament, man. I want to hear some more about it. So day 2, day 1, you had 17 something. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 16-10.
Okay.
In the last 20 minutes of the tournament.
The last 20 minutes, yeah.
Bang, bang, bang. So you're coming off that day on a high note. It started out pretty slow and pretty tough, and then now you're like, okay, I'm starting to figure this out. I'm feeling good. Day 2, did you start in the same area or did you pick a different location?
Man, I tell you, I went back to the same area, and I basically fished a 10-mile stretch, I would say, in the Osage. And the first day I was so worried about boat traffic. I didn't go to my far points up the Osage. I stayed lower because I was just worried about the trip back. I knew it was going to be hard. So the second day I went on up, and I don't know if it was the day, the lack of pressure. I had no other competitors up there with me that day that I saw. And I just started out doing the same thing when it was calm in the morning. And early, I just went to flipping. I just flipped docks, just normal. I wasn't swimming it for the first few hours, and they were already biting better. I caught 3 early, which was good. And then I caught one more keeper going down. It was about a 3.5 pounder. And then my 5th fish that day was a 632. So that didn't hurt. And so I had 3 in my live well that were just barely 15 inches, and that 3-pounder in that one. So I was like, okay, I've got the right fish. I've got the kicker fish. I just need to get rid of these others. And the same deal. I waited till that boat traffic and wind picked up, and picked up that 3/4 ounce football jig and went to pitching it way back up under the docks and swimming it out, and was able to cull out those 3 smaller fish. Probably caught 12 keepers doing it, and I caught them in a hurry. I mean, just as quickly as I could, and was able to catch a good bag that day, right at 18 pounds, if I remember right. I have to go back and look. So,
how'd you feel? Did you feel like you had a chance?
My goal for the tournament was 34 pounds. 34 pounds is all. If you go back and look historically, has won it almost every year up there. So I knew the first day, if I could just come back and do what I did the first day, I'd at least have a chance. And I think I ended up with right around 36. So I thought, in my head, I thought I'm going to have an opportunity here if nobody crushes them. And I came in, and I don't know. I know you guys interviewed Dion. He was giving me quite a hard time. He kept telling me, "I've got him. I got him." And he did. He had a big bag.
He caught a good bag. Yeah,
he did. But I luckily had just enough to hold him off. But it's so hard to win those tournaments. You guys know that. I mean, those guys are so good, especially on that lake. I mean, they're legends that you're fishing against, the Hibdens and Casey Scanlon and Roger Fitzpatrick. I mean, those guys have forgotten about more about fishing than I'll ever know. They've won 50 times more money than I'll ever win already. You know, it's just, they're so hard to compete against. And that to me was the biggest thing, was just, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe it wasn't, normally I'm always thinking about fishing against the fish. And when I actually won, I was like, I cannot believe I beat those guys. I mean, it's just, you don't get an opportunity very darn often to beat those guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's funny you brought that up, because I was thinking about this today when I was delivering mail about it's a BFL, and there's a difference in a BFL and a BPT or a Bassmaster Elite or something. But there are certain lakes where it doesn't matter who is fishing, the caliber is the toughest it's going to be on that lake. And those Lake of the Ozarks tournaments, those BFLs, like you just said, the best fishermen are definitely in those tournaments. I mean, you could write down 30 or 40 names, and they'll all be names that you recognize, people that have won multiple tournaments, that live on the lake, fish it, several times a week. Just back, you hit Dion has won the FLW Cup, and he's won a Bassmaster Classic.
Yep.
So you're fishing with that caliber. Scanlon, there's several guys on tour, and then just local guys that have won Toyota Series. Those guys are all in that same tournament, and to come out on top, I mean, gosh, yeah, you got to feel good about that.
And not taking anything away from like the Elite Series guys, the BPT guys, but a BFL, a 1 day shootout, a 2 day shootout in a BFL is almost harder than winning an Elite Series, because now you're not fishing against the best 100 guys in the country. You're fishing against the best 40 guys on that lake. That's all they know is that lake, or that chain of lakes, or that body or that area of the country. Like the Ozarks, those guys have lived, breathed, and died in that area. They don't know any different than Ozark fishing, and you bested them that day.
And you got like you said, you got Fitzpatrick, you got Bear Horse, you got Socorro, you got Scanlon, you got Jelinek. I mean, just Harlan.
Yeah.
Just, you can just sit there and name.
It goes on and on and on.
Yeah. So so the 4 day tournament, you have to know how to manage fish, probably. So there's definitely a strategy there. But on a 2 day tournament, I think that second day you've got to somewhat manage fish, or you better be dialed into something, because luckily, it went well for you. Your pattern held up, but there's a lot of days, and you'll see it. A lot of guys do good on day one, don't do good on day two, or vice versa. Those patterns can fall apart. But certainly, regardless, that's a huge accomplishment. So you got back, and is there a little bit of dock talk, or people like, what do you got in the live well there, buddy?
Dude, I was there.
Dion was ribbing you, right?
I was there 20 minutes before anybody else. I was the first person to weigh in. Nobody else even got in their bag yet. And I'm going up there, and everybody's like, why didn't you sandbag? Why didn't you sandbag? I was like, I didn't want to risk one dying or splitting up a shad or doing anything. I wanted these suckers weighed in as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was anticlimactic, I guess, because, I was by far – nobody else was even in line when I weighed in. So
it's funny. Yeah, and that boat ride. I mean, a lot of
there
stuff
were no boats out Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was Sunday. So everybody that went up toward the dam was saying how horrible it was. I got back down there. I was like, gosh, I still have 15, 20 minutes. I figured I was going to have to push it. And I got back to like Tantera, Margaritaville, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, I haven't even had to come off, running. I was running 3/4 throttle and hadn't even had to slow down yet. I'm like, what is going on? And that's when I was like, maybe it is my day. I'm not even have to deal with the boat traffic today.
Wow. That's crazy, because Saturday was absolutely nuts.
Saturday was insane. I mean, it didn't matter what you were doing and what kind of boat you were in. It was rough. It didn't matter.
So what is your co-angler, like your day one co-angler, your day two co-angler? I'm always curious about what the guy in the back of the boat's doing, why the guy in the front of the boat is working docks like that.
Man, it the first day, the guy tried to flip with me all day. And I mean, it's hard. And he was a good fisherman. I don't know. I know he didn't weigh in anything. I'm not even sure if don't even remember him catching a fish. But he was cool. Like I said, when I only had those two in the live well, I was getting pretty spun out. I mean, I was like, what, dude, I'm not again. I'm like, how can this lake do this to me again? Cause I've just had such bad luck on that lake when I've been on them. Like you guys were talking about earlier, like where you think you've got it all dialed in, you're going to go out and just win the tournament and everything just goes wrong that can go wrong. And that guy the whole day was saying, oh, you still got 3 hours, you still got 2 hours. It only takes 5 bites to catch 5 fish. Just the whole day was giving me that kind of pep talk. I was like, man, you need to be like a motivational speaker or something, because he kept me from getting all spun out. The second day, I actually drew an 18-year-old kid that fishes at Missouri State. And, man, he was just there to learn. And he's a good fisherman. He actually made the final day at the regional over on Grand. Good fisherman, a good kid. And, he just paid a lot of attention and was really watching what I was doing. And he actually, the following week, I got a text message from him and said, hey man, would you care to take me out and show me how you're doing that and how you approach these docks? And so he met me down here at Shell Knob, and I took him out that week and showed him, why I approach the docks the way I do and how I do it. And I had him running my boat, and, it was pretty cool. Unfortunately, neither of them were able to catch fish in the tournament, but it's hard when somebody's flipping docks. And I fish pretty fast. I'm very, very thorough, but my foot rarely ever comes off that trolling motor. So I cover a lot of water.
Yeah. Did you have those fish pinned to a certain section of the dock? I mean, were they using a certain area of the dock?
The darkest spot you could find.
Okay.
Yeah. If there was a platform, if there was, even like when I said the waves were hitting the docks real hard, if the side of the docks, a lot of them were over on the side, but if the roof overhang made a shadow along that side where the waves were crashing against it, they were right there. They wouldn't be in the sunny side where the waves were crashing. It had to be that darker area. That my last fish on Sunday, it was almost a 4-pounder. And I threw up, there's 2 docks. It's kind of weird how they set up. I don't even know how the people can get in and out of their docks, but there's 2 that are like, one's up against the bank and then another one's out in front of it. And so it's really strange how it's set up. And I throw up there and there's a trot line tied to the dock. And of course I catch that 4-pounder. She wraps herself in that trot line. And I'm like, oh no. And I tell him, I'm like, she's in the trot line. And so he's running to get the net. And dude, she just did a perfect circle back around that trot line and swam right to the boat. I'm like, that doesn't happen.
It's your day.
Yeah.
It's your time. It's your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've told this one time, but I was fishing in Anglers in Action. I think it's only the second one I've ever fished down there, but I skipped. We were catching on jigs, and we had a good bag. This is like a May tournament, and it got really slow. So I'd been catching some fish on a wacky rig back home, and I had a lot of confidence in that at the moment. So I had a spinning rod. I had 8-pound fluoro tied to like 15-pound braid and just a 7-foot medium spinning rod. And I skipped. I'd caught some fish, and we needed one more good fish. We needed one more good fish to get that stringer up there. And I skipped my wacky rig, and I think it went under one cable and over another cable and then down in the water. Spinning rod, your bait gets a little bit squirrely. It has a tendency to, for some reason, it wants to jump a little bit more than when a bait caster does. Or maybe I'm just not that good at it. Anyway, I got it where I wanted it, and my line started moving.
But you didn't know it was over the other one at that point, right?
No, I didn't know. I couldn't tell. Because some of them are, we're talking 8 inches off the water, probably right. at about a 30-foot cast or so, maybe. So I couldn't quite tell exactly. I thought I had a clean shot, but anyway, so my line starts moving, and I set the hook, and it's a good one. And I realize I'm in a pickle, man. So I'm getting it up to this cable, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And it jumps right over the cable. And then I just fight it underneath the other cable and reel it in. And that was it was a good solid, like a 4-pound fish that we needed. But
it's that good, clean living.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where it could have went either way, but that fish jumped at the right time and everything worked out like it was supposed to. Yeah, good, clean living, exactly.
Yeah, that stuff's not supposed to happen, whether you flip it over that cable or that fish jumped over that. I mean, that's just that those things don't happen until you start living right.
Right.
We got a couple questions here for you. SF Outdoors in Arkansas says, please ask Matt his favorite area of Table Rock.
Man, living up here at Shell Knob, I'm a White River guy. If I had to pick an area for in all times of the year, that area around Baxter just seems to hold a ton of fish. That within 3 miles of any direction of Baxter Boat Dock is just loaded with fish all year long. You can fish. There's brush piles fish up there in the summer. The spring fishing is phenomenal there. You can run up the rivers there if you want to fish shallow. You can run up Big Indian Creek and flip and throw square bill. I mean, it's just such a good area right there. I'd recommend that stretch over really anywhere else. And you don't have to deal with quite the boat traffic and stuff in the summer as you do a lot of the rest of the lake. It's busy, don't get me wrong, but it's not nearly as busy as down toward Cumberland City, and that area is a little bit better in that area right there.
Is that consistent no matter what the season? You can still catch fish in that area?
Yeah, that's why I said. I mean, there's every time of year seems like in the early spring, the dam area is where a guy needs to be to win a tournament. The James River specifically in the summer seems to win a lot of tournaments. The upper White early is always good early, but man, that stretch right there around Baxter, somebody every tournament, all times a year will catch their fish in that area that's up there in the top 4 or 5. So if I had to choose an area, that'd be where I'd choose.
I ran to the Kings River in a BFL last year, all the way, way up it. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed at how different that looks. You would have loved it. It was like 6 inches of visibility.
Yep.
Yeah. We go from 13 foot of visibility to 6 inches of visibility.
Gosh.
You got to run 30 miles, but
yeah, right. If all tournaments were on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I wouldn't go anywhere but the Kings River. I don't know. I can't catch them on a weekend in the Kings. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Awesome
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Is it like the Thursday Friday pattern versus the Saturday Sunday?
Yeah,
pattern?
I don't know why. I love the Kings. I live it's just right out my door here to turn and run up the Kings. So I love fishing up there. I go up there a bunch, but man, I cannot catch them there in a tournament. It burns me every time.
Yeah, and you're a shallow water guy too, or you like to fish shallow.
Yeah, I can't. I'm telling you, I love it up there. It is so good. And like you said, it's dirty, and I can fish the way I like to fish. And I make that run up there on Saturday. I might as well just turn around and go back home. It seems like every time.
All right, Brock is asking, Matt, what's your best secret you've never told? Spill some beans. Give us some fishing nugget knowledge. You got any kind of hacks or little tricks that you've learned over the years you want to share?
Man,
it's a pretty general, broad question, I realize.
It is. There's so many little things that we all do that we don't know is a secret till you're fishing with somebody else and like, well, I didn't know that's how you do it. And that it's hard to think of anything specific like that. Let me think about that one for a minute. I'll come up with something. I don't know. I'm trying to I don't know. It's so hard to come up with secrets anymore. Everybody's figured everything out.
I know.
I think you're right though. Like we grew up in the age of YouTube, right? Like YouTube has came on as we've gotten older, and that.
Well, we didn't grow up in it.
We're there now. We're there in it,
yeah.
And where folks can grow up. We grew up alongside of it, I guess. And there's not, like you said, there's no secrets. It's not you don't have to wait for the next issue of the Bassmasters magazine or the FLW magazine to come out, or the MLF magazine to come out to figure out what the hot bait is or how to rig a worm Texas rig. You just go and learn to tie that new Palomar knot, or learn to tie that new FG knot by watching 30 YouTube videos instead of learning it on your own or reading about it in a magazine. I mean,
yeah.
But to your point, if I don't fish with you, you think that's normal,
right?
What you do is normal. And then I jump in the boat with Gabe, and I'm like, "Hey, take a look at this." And he's like, "Why do you do it that way? That doesn't make any sense, but it works." Like pegging a weight versus not pegging a weight in the spring of the year. I'll just leave it at that.
I'd say, there's one thing I do that, and I mean, my buddies, it's not a secret to them because I've been doing it forever, but during the shad spawn, I swim black and white mop jig.
Really?
All black body with a white trailer. That's something, it seems odd, seems crazy, but I don't know, just something caught on to and started doing. And yeah, so I'd say that probably, if I was a secret, that's one of those things that I don't have laying on my deck when I leave the takeoff, and I put it up before I come back in. It's just something a little different. But yeah, I'd say that'd be my one thing I do that's a little different than probably what anybody else does. And does it make a big difference? I don't know. It's a confidence thing probably, but I've caught a lot of fish on a black and white mop jig.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a little thing that you got to try it. I've caught them on a black and blue swim jig, similar scenario, throwing into schooling fish versus, they'll quit biting an underspin or something, or a little small swim bait, and you throw something that's totally contrast from what a shad looks like, and it works sometimes. But
heck, we caught them. Was it talking about swimming something? It was the Barron River, or Neely Henry, one of the two. I can't remember. Swimming a menace,
like Texas rig menace.
Yeah, Texas rig menace swimming.
Yeah,
and just butchered them in practice on it. Like every dock you pulled up to, you catch them on that, but they hadn't seen that. Everybody else was throwing a Cinco or skipping a jig underneath the dock. Because I started out skipping a jig, and my boater was throwing that, and he's like, "Try one of these." So of course, the tackle store got a bunch of my money that week.
But, right?
Yeah. Sometimes they want that.
Just something different, a small profile, thin. Different.
I've had them hit a shaky head sometimes swimming it back in. The tail just barely kind of quivers when you're reeling it back in, and sometimes they'll want that. It's just really, are they on the bottom, or are they in the middle? The middle of the water column, or up on the top, and then you kind of just make adjustments on different baits. But you're talking about something that's kind of sneaky. We're kind of talking about that, and everything's out there. This is something that just came out from Jewel, and this is the Scope Spin. I just got 4 of these in the mail, and I'm super stoked to check this thing out. I know Gail, I've talked to him recently about this, and he told me a story about Dale Coven, who guides in at Bull Shows. And I got the chance to jump in the boat with Dale for a couple of days. It's been a year already. Jeez, it goes by. But he's been on the stream before as well. But Lindell is the guy that kind of started working on this like 8 years ago. And Gail told me a story about Lindell being in the back of the boat throwing this, Dale being in the front of the boat with live scope. Lindell, no live scope. Lindell was out catching Dale like 6 or 8 to 1. Dale was going through all his normal baits, his drop shots, his jig and wrap, or the wrap with a jig and spoon, ice jig, I guess you call it, all the stuff. But he didn't have this, and Lindell was kicking his butt out of the back of the boat with no forward-facing sonar at all. So this is a new bait that they just came out with called the Scope Spin, obviously. I don't know if Baitworks has got it in yet, but you might check the website if you're interested in this. It's a 1 ounce bait with a big willow leaf. I'll pull it out. I think it's pretty cool. It's unique, and I'm going to be
awesome.
Yeah, it looks really, really cool. I'm going to be trying this out Wednesday. I located like 4 schools of fish that I cannot wait to try this on. It's got that little, it's kind of like I don't know, it's like a spoon sort of, but then it's got this blade, and it's got, I don't know what size hooks these are on there. It doesn't say. 4s. Yeah, probably number 4s. They're kind of small.
That's what I look at 4s, yeah.
Yeah, but this is something that I was talking to Gail about how to fish this, and he said there's 2 advantages of this. The weight, at least the 1 ounce weight. One is you can make super, super long casts, and when you're fishing forward-facing sonar, the fish get increasingly spooky. Something like something with a 1 ounce weight, you can really make a long cast and get out away from the boat. It doesn't even have to be forward-facing sonar. Fish just get spooky. They get a lot of pressure, and the further you can get that bait out there away from the boat, the better off you are. And the second reason that the 1 ounce weight is so important on this is it's going to hold its presence, its horizontal presence coming through the water. So you make that long cast and you count it down. It drops 2 feet per every 1 second count. So say you're wanting to fish at 30 feet deep, you're going to count to 15 and get it down there. And then as you're reeling it in, it has a tendency to stay on that horizontal plane. It doesn't want to rise as much. Say if it was just a 1/2 ounce bait or something, it's going to definitely rise up. That heavier weight is going to keep it down there horizontal for a lot longer. And he was saying, you kind of reeling it through it and you can kind of pump it up and work it kind of like sort of like a jigging spoon, more like a horizontal jigging spoon. But I'm stoked about this thing. I can't wait to get out there and try it out. It's nice and compact. And I'm gonna get out there and try to do a video on this. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for this little thing. Have you got any of these yet? Have you heard about them?
Yeah, I haven't thrown them yet. It's going to be a game changer. I'll tell you right now. Dell actually posted videos today. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, I did see them. No,
he posted videos on Instagram, whacking them on it. Yeah, it's going to be a game changer. It really will be.
Yeah, it's been hush hush for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of teasing me about it several months ago, but I'm glad to have my hands on them. We'll see. We'll see if they work. I know some areas, and those fish are starting to group up, so it's about time to have one of these things. And this is something, if you side scan, you don't have to have forward facing sonar. If you side scan and you see those fish in that area, this is something you can fan cast. Just count it down to the depth that those fish are on.
It's going to get there in a hurry too.
Yeah, it's going to get down. I think it's fishing docks, like if you got deep docks like Table Rock, pitching. I saw Eric Prey did a video where he was pitching this around the docks,
just like a spoon, just pitching it in. Is something different they haven't seen.
Right. It's interesting. 2 colors. You got that color, and then you got a
prism shad.
That's a prism shad, and then they got the white. This is called pearl, actually. So it's only 2 colors. You really just need 2 colors. I mean, when I throw a flutter spoon, I'm throwing a white flutter spoon, or I'm throwing a chrome flutter spoon. Much. Just keep it simple. I was going to touch on Bass Edge Radio.
Yeah.
I listened to your interview on there. It was you did a really good job. It was a good production.
Hey, thanks.
So one of your travel partners, your fishing buddies, is Aaron Martin. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did he get? I know this is not so much about you, but I'm just curious about how he hooked up with that show and got all that going and stuff.
Aaron. So he had a TV show. He had a Bass Edge TV show, and it was really, really doing well. Lot of viewers, a lot going on, and then the economy kind of went south. And I don't know if you guys know Aaron, but that guy is as good a human being as you'll ever be around in your life. And he had one of his major sponsors came to him, and they want to continue on, but they were laying off some of their employees. And he determined that he just said, hey, I can't take your money if you're laying off people. And so that's how the podcast came about. Decided to get rid of the TV show and do something that's a lot lower budget. And it's just gone great ever since. And, he has such a huge network in the fishing industry. Everybody knows him, from all the elites to all the way down to the lower level guys like myself. And so they know that he's trustworthy and a good guy. And so he's got those interviews just lined up and coming in. It's awesome, man. He does a great job. Him and Kurt do an excellent job.
Yeah, they do. They do a really good job. It's a nice compact show. You get a lot of information in a 1 hour session, and they're polished interviews. They do an excellent job. For sure. Here's a question for you. Russ says, ask Matt if he guides or gives fishing lessons.
I don't. No.
Derek says you do for $29.99.
Hey, 2020, right?
Right. Yeah. I will for the right price. Yeah. Anything. Man, I'll tell you, I've got some really close friends that are guides, and that is a lot of work. It is. I always thought, man, if I ever can retire early, I want to be a guide. Forget that. Those guys work their tails off. Yeah, that's tough. So
it sounds really, really good for the first week.
Yeah.
And then week 2, when you're not on fish, and you got 5 clients lined up for this week that you don't know what you're going to do. That's
the only way I would do it is if I trout fish Taneycomo, because I know how to catch those suckers. And I think anybody can catch them over there. That's anytime like my son's friends or something, they want to go fishing. I'm like, yeah, let's go to Taneycomo trout fishing. I know we can catch them over there. you know how hard, I mean, gosh, mostly, these novice anglers, they come over and they can't use a bait caster. They don't know how to use a spinning rod. They don't know what a bait feels like. They don't know how to work it.
Yeah.
I don't know how these guys, I tip my hat to every guide out there that can take people out and catch fish, because good night. That's tough.
So Gabe and I have talked about this a lot, and I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but our definition and someone else's definition of a good day on the water are totally different. So we expect to catch fish. If they catch 2 or 3 fish, that may be their expectation for the day. And it's a phenomenal day for them because they got out, they got to relax, they get to clear their head because they don't get to do this every day.
You're right.
We look at it as, my goodness, we only caught 4 fish today. And that was a horrible day on the lake. And they're thinking, man, this is the best day I've had in a long time. I didn't have to think about anything. And I caught fish.
Yeah, that's so Rich's comment here. He says 1 June he blistered smallies on Mille Lacs swimming a menace on a jig head, and that's kind of segueing into what we're talking about as far as the guiding thing. My buddy Ron, who was a guide up at Mille Lacs for multiple years, that's one technique that he told me about. It's kind of secret. He'd take like a 3/4 ounce football head and put a menace on there or a speed crawl and drag it along. But he's talked about the clientele that comes out in the boat with him, and like you said, you have people from all different walks of life. You've got really hardcore fish heads. You've got guys that are just wanting to learn how to locate and how to graph. And then you've got people that don't get to fish that much and they just like being out there. You've got guys that just want to get away from their wife. They just want a weekend out in the boat where it's just 2 dudes out, and they really don't care if they catch any fish. You're not really trying to learn. You got people that are excellent with a bait caster, and then you got some that struggle with the spinning rod and everything in between. And it's I think that's one of the reasons why he liked doing it so much, is every day was a little bit different. And you had just different skill levels of anglers. But
I've done a lot with like the high school kids and teaching those kids. And I started the fishing program in Mount Vernon several years ago. I don't think they have one anymore, but I got it going there. And I'm still I'm on the board of the National Youth Fishing Association. I love working with the kids like that. But man, I do it because I love it, but I wouldn't want to do it for a living. That's for darn sure. Yeah.
And then there's the behind the scenes stuff, like the prepping for the next day.
Yeah.
You get off the water at dark and you don't just pull the boat in the garage and go to bed. You've got to prep for the next day. And then you've got to get up in the morning and go get ice and get fuel and stuff. So there's several more hours that are tacked onto each side of the actual guide trip day. That it's kind of that behind the scenes stuff that people don't think about.
Yeah. And I love taking out like guys that are, especially like we were talking about the kid I had the second day that emailed me wanting to go out and kind of learn how to fish docks and stuff. Man, anybody that's kind of serious about it, I love taking those people out and working with them and helping them, at least showing them what I know. I'm far from an expert. I'll be the first one to tell you, but if I can share a little bit of knowledge that helps them out, I love doing that. Because man, that's how Aaron and I got to be such good friends back in the day. Man, this fishing was so competitive and so cutthroat when we first started. They didn't want young people around, and that's the truth. I mean, you can go back and ask any of those guys. They didn't want any new blood. They kind of shunned you. So he and I kind of hit it off because we're the new guys that nobody wanted to be around, nobody wanted to talk to, and that's how we started. And that's what we swore we would never be that way. We always try to, if we see somebody at a restaurant eating by themselves at a tournament, we invite them to come eat with us and do it. I mean, there's just no point in it. So it's if you all work together, you're going to be better off anyway. So.
Well, then you're not going to end up on top of each other and have to have that awkward conversation.
Yeah, it's true.
Like you're buddies, and then all of a sudden you pull up on the same starting hole, and it's like, what do we do?
Yep.
Hoodie up and just,
Yeah, that can fishing has made a lot of friendships, but it's also ruined a lot of friendships too.
It does. We've recently had some of those conversations. It can ruin relationships in a hurry.
Right. And it shouldn't. I mean, we're just chasing a little green fish.
Yeah.
It's all in fun. So,
man, I'm never going to get rich doing this. I promise you.
No.
I sell toothbrushes for a living, so I'll stick with selling them to try to get rich.
Do you really sell toothbrushes for a living?
Yeah, I sell dental supplies and dental equipment. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. I think you're the first person I've ever met that sold toothbrushes for a living. Wow.
Yeah.
My grandma has a toothbrush joke. that I can't tell on the air, but that just made me think about that. My grandma, every once in a while, she busts in. You know, as you get older, you start kind of caring less about what you say.
Right. Isn't there a song about that? Your give a damn's busted or something like that?
There might be. Every once in a while, she'd just bust out something, and everybody stops and just looks like, "Where did that
what
come
did you
from?"
say?
It's classic. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So hopefully we'll all live to be that age. Yeah. Hellabass says, "I will always be rich in fish." His name is Rich, so he's always going to be rich in fish. It makes sense. So
yeah,
what?
That's hold on. So do you sell toothbrushes or do you sell teeth brushes?
Well, I don't work in Arkansas much anymore, so mostly I sell teeth brushes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. What did Arkansas ever do to deserve that? You know, I always wonder. It's always that other state. It's not your state that you live in. It's usually the border state.
It's for us. It's for Illinois. Like I remember growing up, it's like, no, you see somebody that ran a red light or cut somebody off. They must be from Illinois.
Yeah, we always say rock eaters. Must be some rock eaters down there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Oh my goodness. What else you got?
I was going to ask you two things: plans for next year, tournament wise and stuff, and then also your favorite way to catch them. I mean, if you could tie something on and go out and catch them on that bait, what would that bait be?
All right. As far as tournaments go for next year, still ironing that out. I know I'll fish the Oak Outdoors events. And as of right now, I think I plan on fishing the Toyota Series again. I haven't fished it in the last few years. I think I'm going to go back to fishing it again. Just trying to work out some details there as far as, making sure conflicts and stuff. It's a lot of money to invest in it. And you've got to it's going to cost $10,000, but we figure by the time it's all said and done, if gas prices don't come down, and so you have to do well. But I'll probably go back to fishing those and we'll then just some buddy stuff here and there. So
that'll fill up.
I'll probably jump in the first 3 BFLs down here on Table Rock, and just kind of see how those go, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's convenient. The 3 of those at Table Rock. I mean, you almost got to jump in them if your schedule's open.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I can be at the boat ramp over there in 45 minutes at where the tournament's out of, so I can practice right here out of the house. We've got a boat ramp right here at the house, so that's I pretty well have to at least give it a shot. Man, as far as a favorite way to catch them, I'd have to say a buzzbait. Man, that's hard to have more fun than when they're really eating a buzzbait.
Yeah, buzzbait. I like that topwater bite. It's funny.
It is.
I don't catch a lot of fish on a buzzbait around here, though.
Yeah, but I mean,
we don't throw it enough. Is what it is.
Essentially, you're throwing a buzzbait.
Yeah, I guess we are in a way. We're throwing a grass buzzbait usually.
Yeah.
So do you have a certain size? Just talk about buzzbaits a little bit. Like, how do you? I don't throw them a whole lot. What are some of the things to look for when you're throwing a buzzbait? Like size, trailers.
Man, in the fall, I throw a black with a gold blade or a black with a gold blade. Be it wrong or right, those are the 2 colors I throw. I have 20 different blacks with gold blades, in all different sizes. Anywhere, I've got some little bitty ones that are like, they're smaller than a quarter. They're tiny. I throw them on a spinning rod actually. And maybe they're 8, and then all the way up to some heavy, like 3/4, but half and 3/4 primarily. And if they're eating it, I'll have 2 tied on. I'll have one that squeaks and one that clacks. The Tackle HD and the Crocagator are both awesome baits because they squeak right out of the package, and you can bend the arm to if you want it to clack or not clack. And I mess around with, I typically throw a black horny toad, or I actually just switched to that new Crocagator toad. I really like it.
The X Toad.
Yeah, I really, really like it. But there's times I'll still throw it sometimes just with the skirt on it. Just kind of depend. I'll play around. If I think they should be eating it, I'll play around with it. I'll throw also something else I put on a lot of times is a biffle bug instead of a toad. I really like throwing that biffle bug on it. I think that works really well.
Huh. I haven't done that. I had 2 really good buzzbait days last year, and it was with a swim bait. I just put a swim bait on there, and for whatever reason, they
do you think it mattered it was a swim bait on there, or do you think they would ate it without?
Well, I know one thing: when you do put a toad, a lot of times it makes it run a little bit to the side. Sometimes, depending on the buzzbait. But actually, that crockett gator, the X bite, that doesn't have a skirt on it. I was throwing that the other day with a toad on there, and it actually runs pretty true. I've had some in the past that they want to kind of roll off on the side.
Roll on the side.
Yeah, and it's usually a lighter, like a 1/4 ounce buzzbait or something. That toad's too big, so that's what I was throwing, a 1/4 ounce, and I put I just had a little Reaction Innovation skinny dipper on there, like a 3-inch swim bait on there, and they were killing that thing. Yeah,
I think in the spring I'll throw a lot of different colors. I throw a lot of white and silver in the spring. Once the water's 52, 53 degrees, if I'm going to throw one, I usually throw a white and silver. But in the fall and winter, I throw black.
Mm-hmm.
How cold is too cold?
Usually, I typically won't throw it, and they'll probably eat it. I just usually 53, 54 is kind of what I'm looking for to start throwing it.
Yeah. And then in the fall, when it gets below that, you kind of.
And when it gets below that, usually, just below that 53-degree mark is when it starts to get too cold. But, Jimmy Davis, I think I can't remember, it may have been Jackie Davis a few years ago in a Central Pro-Am in the spring. It was cold, and we were catching on jerkbait. I can't remember the water temperature, but I mean, I threw a jerkbait the whole tournament, and I don't even know that he had to fish the second day, and he smashed them on a buzzbait. I think he ended up in 2 days, he had 3 7-pounders.
Holy cow.
That he weighed in, all on a buzzbait. And it was like I said, we were throwing a jerkbait, so the water was at least that cold. So,
wow.
They just won that championship at Truman, too.
They did. I was so happy for them.
Yeah.
So happy for them. It's guys like that I kind of feel for over this live scope stuff. They've got 40 years experience of working their tails off. Knowing every nook and cranny and every rock in the lake and where to throw at it and how to approach it. And, I hate that their 40 years of experience is, I hate to say out the window, but man, it seems like it is a lot of times. I feel for them on that. So I was so glad to see them win. That was awesome.
Yeah. I don't know them, but I've heard a lot of good things about them, that they're just really, really solid dudes. So it was cool to see them do good. Yeah, and you're right, man. That live scope has neutralized a lot of that history. There's times when it is a game changer. I don't even like saying that word, but there are times when that's the deal, and then there's other times where the fish are shallow and that forward-facing sonar is kind of neutralized.
Yeah,
but it's becoming. It's like I don't know, that forward-facing sonar. It's like it opens up a whole new area, a whole new fit. I mean, I guess they're getting used to seeing it now, but at one time, not too long ago, it was you're exposed to a whole fresh crop of fish that haven't been pressured. So, I don't know, man. I see both sides of the live scope argument. I understand all of it.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to watch the fish.
Right. Yeah. I don't have the jury's still out, in my opinion, on what I think about it. I'm not dogging it. I use it. I like it. It's not my expertise by any means, but I do it. But I tell you, my only fear on live scope is like Stockton Lake, what's going to happen to the crappie population. They're wiping it out in the winter. They're going to have to do something, maybe put in a slot limit or make it where you can only keep, 4 or 5 in certain months of the year. Cause man, there's some areas up there that when they get bunched up, it's like Roaring River, Bennett Springs. I mean, there's 50 boats out there all casting to the same group of crappie that there's 300,000 in one school. It's crazy.
Yeah. You have to be stewards of anything. You have to respect the gifts that are given, or that you can't overdo it. people have to be responsible. It's like, it just takes a couple groups of people or people really hammering a year class of fish, whether it's bass, crappie, whatever, and it screws everything up. You just gotta, take what you need and leave the rest out there swimming around. But you're right, man. People can really hammer on a population of fish.
Yeah.
Well, and let's be honest, Mother Nature is going to right itself eventually, right? Like, it's for the guys like you and I and Gabe that love fishing shallow cover. Those fish are going to adapt. It may take them a couple years, but they're going to adapt. It's gonna push. I truly believe it's going to push those fish to the bank, back to the bank that were out there roaming. So
I think
you can see it. You can see it happening. I mean, even in local lakes, there's points where I've caught them scoping in June, good fish, June and July. And if I go to those points now, those fish are still there and they won't even look at my stuff. I mean, and they're out deep to where most people aren't really just randomly casting.
Yeah, your bank beaters aren't hitting them.
No, your bank beaters they don't even know they're out there. They're way out there further than what you would normally fish. And so that tells me that those fish have seen a bait dropped right on their head a bunch of times by people with live scope. So it's not.
I've got some brush piles that if you throw a bait over it, you might as well take a grenade and throw it in there because those fish are gone. I mean, it's unbelievable watching them boil out of there.
Yep.
Scared to death.
I threw a jerk bait the other day. I was over at a local lake, and I saw fit. I was catching these A-rig fish, but I kept seeing every once in a while I'd see a group of fish like up in 5 foot of water. My boat's in like 27, and I'm fishing for fish that are like 15 and down on the bottom. But every once in a while you'd see some that were just kind of soaking up the sun. They're like 5 foot underneath the surface. So I'd fire my jerk bait out there, and I threw a jerk bait. It landed probably 20 feet past that fish. And that fish just shot to the side and all the way to the bottom, like 100 miles an hour. That splash shot. I started laughing. It's kind of funny because you're like, what? You know exactly what that fish was thinking. He's like,
oh yeah,
what the heck was that? I'm getting the heck out of here. You know.
I had that before.
I've been on that boat ride before. I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Exactly.
I felt bad. I did catch one that had a big old coal mark in him this weekend. Like probably. 10 miles from the ramp, I guess not even probably 5 miles, long way from the ramp that he had to swim to get back there. And I mean, he was one of those perfect fish. We have a slot limit, so you got to catch unders too. And he was like 13 and 15 16ths and the slot's 14. So it was perfect. And I knew when I caught him, I was like, he's too big, but then I lifted him and I felt the hole in his, it's like, oh, this one might be perfect. And he was. But
I probably skinny from all that swimming back and forth.
Yeah,
he was long and lean, but you know what? If they're that long, those we were talking about that earlier. Those little fish are just as important.
Oh yeah,
2 4-pounders. So, but yeah, I felt bad putting him in the live well. It's like, man, you gotta make that right again.
St. Louis Bass Bro says 6-inch mag spoon gets slept on at Lake of the Ozarks in the piles. As long as you got forward facing sonar and you are fishing outside the piles or over the piles, but you got to be able to see what you're doing. That reminds me of I fished with Pete Winters one time in a Table Rock BFL, and he was live scoping, throwing an A-rig over treetops, and I was trying to do the same thing out of the back of the boat. And after I lost my third A-rig, I decided that it was getting way too expensive to be doing that. I couldn't see what the heck was going on. Let's see. Let's ask one more question here. We'll wrap this up. It's been a good time hanging out with you, but let's see. South Jersey Fisherman 028 says, what's Matt's top 3 cranks he likes to fish in the fall time, and how does he like to work them and where?
I still throw a wiggle wart a lot. I start throwing it in September, into August, a lot earlier than what a lot of people do. And I throw it in 2 different areas. I'll throw it on steep. It sounds silly, like 2 completely different things, but I'll throw it on like those steeper 45-degree banks. And then I'll throw it on just the flattest points you can throw it on and really dig it around. And it seems like one or the other is where they're at. Rock crawler would do the same thing. I just still have so many of the old wiggle warts. I throw those a lot. And I'm a square bill guy. and Dave's Custom Baits makes some really nice square bills. I usually go down to the smaller sizes in the fall than what I throw in the summer. In the summer, I throw the bigger ones. In the fall, I start downsizing a little bit to the smaller ones. And then, man, I've caught so many fish the last 5 or 6 years just on that KVD 1.5 Strike King. I almost always have one tied on. I finished second in a December tournament, Central Pro-Am, to Mark Tucker at Lake of the Ozarks, actually. And I caught all my fish on that KVD 1.5, just throwing it down those, just the seawalls. Anywhere there's concrete around, the concrete, little pillars that the cables are hooked to, anything like that. I was just throwing that 1.5 around it. And man, that's a great bait because it's plastic, it's cheap, and it hunts. So you can throw it up over those cables and all that stuff. You lose a couple, you're not breaking the bank like a $70 Dave's Custom Baits. So that'd be the 3 that I'd throw the most.
Yeah, and that's such a common bait, like you said. If you get on a 1.5 bite with that and you break them off, you can go to Walmart usually and buy them. They're everywhere.
Yeah, and I mean they hunt. I mean it's rare to find a non-balsa, or at least not a non-high end bait that what kind of hunts back and forth. But you watch those, and it's not a real wide hunt, but it's not a straight line. And I think that's why they work so well.
Mm-hmm. What about colors as far as the wiggle warts and stuff? Do you throw the red crawl patterns in the fall, or are you strictly like more shy, like shad, bone, that type of color?
No, I still throw in crawdad colors.
Mm-hmm.
I will throw something that's got a little more like crawdad color. It's got like some chartreuse mixed in it, like some of the custom painted ones that I have. Some with a little bit brighter on it, but I still throw like the old Barker Browns and those. They eat it just as well.
You ever throw a black crankbait?
Man, I don't. I hear people say that. I've never thrown one. I don't even own one, I don't think.
What about black jerkbait? Same thing?
I've thrown a black jerkbait.
Okay.
Yeah, I have thrown a black jerkbait, and I've caught fish on it.
Okay. Just curious about that. You always, you hear about a black jig, a black and blue jig. You hear about a black spinner bait. You hear about a black buzz bait, but you don't hear people talk much about a black crankbait or a black jerkbait. And
any hard baits in that?
Yeah, any hard baits with treble hooks, but they're in play. They're out there being used. They're just not being talked about much. What about line? What line size do you typically use for those 3 baits that you mentioned?
I throw the square bills. I throw on 15, just fluorocarbon. And I know people, there's a big argument on back and forth on whether you just throw it on mono or fluoro. I like it on fluoro. A lot of times when that water gets cold, like you say mid-December, and I'm throwing that square bill, I'm reeling it so slow that if I'm throwing on mono, it wants to rise up in the water, where on fluoro it doesn't. Okay. Because I get it down to depth, and I'm just barely reeling it fast enough to make the rod tip wiggle. And then the wiggle wart, I've actually gone up in line size. I throw it on 12 now, and I haven't noticed any difference in quantity of bites, and I lose less baits. So I was throwing on 10 for years, and even 8 at times, but no, I throw it on 12 now, 12-pound fluoro, and that seems to be my go-to always on that.
That sounds like a win-win, losing less baits and
right.
Yeah, I like 12-pound tests. I think I throw a lot of my crankbaits on 12-pound tests. It's kind of a compromise, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in 12 and 8, though. I mean, 8's like you get that extra couple feet of depth, but man, you got to be really careful.
I tell you what, I mean, I think that's kind of sneaky stuff. If you're not necessarily really sneaky, but that 12-pound test line on square bills where you're throwing it in the junk and getting it down just a little bit deeper
versus 15 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I've seen it happen in a boat that I was a part of. So whether it's a 1.5, a 2.5, a DT6, you name it, name the bait of those shallow running crankbaits, and I will opt for the lighter in that spectrum.
That was a lot easier to do when the baits were $3.50 and now they're $15. That's why I try to go a little heavier when I can. But no, you're exactly right. That it makes a difference.
Yeah, but let's be honest. How many times have you broke off 12 and it wasn't your fault?
Yeah.
I mean, right. On a fish or something?
No, I mean, even like if you get hung up, like
it doesn't matter what line you
got. It doesn't matter if you got 20 or 8, you're going to end up breaking it off.
Maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, you could really, if you had 20, you could really maybe roll that rock over or whatever.
Maybe. But I'm talking about like because of a burr or something like that on your line. I mean,
and usually when I lose a crankbait, you guys probably do too. It's in a trot line or a piece of rope or something that's man-made down there. It's not a rock or a twig.
Right.
You can almost get it out of brush always. It's just always, you get in somebody else's fishing line, somebody's rope, somebody's trot line, a lawn chair, whatever.
A dead body.
Yeah.
Just never know. All right, man. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
Where can they follow you at? They want to follow along with Matt Ells.
You don't have a Facebook page, I know that.
I don't know, man. I don't have Facebook. I've got Instagram and I've got Twitter. I've just I'm not a giant social media guy. I should be. That's where it's all at. But I'm trying to get better about posting stuff on Instagram.
Hey, you ain't missing nothing, man. There's good. I was trying to friend you on Facebook, and I kept looking. I'm like, he's incognito. He's off the map. So that's good. I respect that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, Instagram's where I do, but I try to post stuff, and sometimes I'll post, little before the tournaments. I'll put in, hey, here's how I caught them today, type stuff, just to see if anybody actually follows me or pays any attention to what I say. So I'll do that every once in a while.
Yeah. All right, man. Appreciate you coming on here, hanging out. It was good to meet you. Spend some time with you.
And, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a good time.
Yeah, congratulations on the Super Tournament, and best of luck next year. Maybe I'll run into you again. I know we ate dinner that one time I was with Mike.
Wobbly Boots.
Yeah. We didn't have a lot of, really a chance to have some conversation, but hopefully sometime in the near future we can meet face to face and chat for evening or whatever.
That sounds great, man.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody on here, we do this every Monday night. If you're looking for something to do next Monday, come join us again. Thanks for everybody staying with us for a couple hours. A lot of great information, and we're going to wrap this up. So till next time,
see ya.